Well, the Iowa Hawkeyes with a terrific victory on this Saturday afternoon, folks. 81-79 over the Fighting Illini. The Orange Crush, as they say. We're going to get to some of the controversy, I'm sure, later. I want to get Coach Close's perspective on the pregame controversy. But, boy, plenty to talk about in this one. Iowa very easily could have let this thing get away in the second half. Illinois, I believe, up by 8. 8 was the largest lead for the Illini. They got there at least once, got up to 7 another time, and Iowa just kept responding. This was a phenomenal game from start to finish, and we're going to get to your calls, get to your comments here in a little bit. We've got Coach Close here in the queue waiting. Again, lots to get to, and before we get to any of it, I want to remind everybody how this goes here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We've got Coach Close here. He was at the game, so we're going to try to be somewhat somewhat understanding to his time with family. And we're going to try to keep our calls short, our questions short if at all possible. I will stick around after Coach Close jumps off to take your calls and comments. So I'll be here at least the better part of an hour, not an hour and a half, somewhere in that time frame. So again, keep the questions coming in the chat. We've got one line open on the phone, and then, of course, unlimited lines by means of StreamYard. I'm going to throw the link up in the live chat right now. The link I'm throwing up right now is to call in via StreamYard. If you've never done it, super simple. Just sign in with your Google or Facebook account. You can sign in through StreamYard. No app needed. Before we get to Coach Close, want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm in Des Moines. And we want to thank Brad because he is sponsoring the entire season here at Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. And Brad and his team working tirelessly throughout the week to get you great rates on insurance, whether we're talking auto insurance, renter's insurance, life insurance, etc. Give them a call, 515-256-6480 for an original quote, for a personal quote for you and your family. Or, of course, you can visit them online at www.bradvanmeter.com. Again, appreciate the personal service and the sponsorship of Brad Van Meter down at State Farm. All right, folks, let's get to Coach Gary Close. Gary, good to see you.
Hey, Corey. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going great, and it's good to see you at Carver for the second straight game. I was going to say, it looked like an electric atmosphere there today. Can you first of all tell us about the sold-out crowd?
Oh, yes, it was phenomenal. Just they were tuned in, ready to go right from the opening tip, and it helped. We needed everything to squeeze this one out, so it was a lot of fun.
I just want to jump into this because I'm, as you know, I'm so happy for Tony Perkins. He has had his fair of struggles over the last month and a half, or even more than that, back into December. I feel like ever since that Iowa State game, he's been a bit sideways. But now here's the third straight game in double figures. But this one, obviously, completely different. He gets to 32 points on the day. And, of course, most of those points, or I should say a lot of those points, were at the free throw line. And to me, Gary, he just is this game is the epitome of when you're struggling in some fashion on the offensive end, be aggressive, get to the line, and that can just open things up for you and make everything a lot easier and make the basket a lot bigger.
No doubt. And their ability to get to the free throw line was a big reason why they won the game. I haven't seen the stats, but I'm guessing the point differential from the free throw line was pretty significant, and he was a big part of it. Just a terrific game. He scored 31 points on very few shots. He was just very efficient, and it's how you want your guards to play. He was terrific.
Yeah, on the night, Tony Perkins 15-16 from the free throw line, and I'm sure if you asked Tony, he'd be upset with that last miss, which kind of kept Illinois involved here. But just what a terrific night. And once he started getting to the free throw line, Gary, all of a sudden you see the confidence, you just see the switch kind of come on for Tony, and he was unstoppable from the mid-range. Talk about what he does that makes him so effective with those jump shots, even over decent defense.
Yeah, he was taking advantage. They were playing a kind of a drop coverage on those ball screens and giving him those pull-ups, and he just was in rhythm and very comfortable, and did a nice job of keeping the defensive guy on his back, and he actually draw a few fouls doing that, and had a pretty unmolested 10, 12 footer that he got got on a roll and just kept shooting those, and it's a good job of taking what the defense gave them, and great job on his part.
I made the comment on social media during the game. If Iowa had lost this game, let's reverse the scores here, Gary. 81-79, Illinois wins. I think that without question, they lost this game. Iowa would have lost this game on the glass. Illinois dominating in that category, not to the extent they dominated in Carver last year. We can get to that in a second. But 37-26, I thought there were some here I go complaining about officiating. I thought there were some missed over-the-back calls. I don't think we got a single over-the-back call all night. I understand Iowa didn't do a great job of boxing out, and it's difficult when you're playing zone to find a body and box a guy out. But the glass was a struggle. Iowa struggled at times to get stops, but they got enough. So what was different about a game like this at home where I think they struggled for the most part defensively as opposed to when they got routed in Columbus?
Yeah, I think, well, they scored a little more for sure. I think the rebounding was definitely a worrisome part. They did not do a good job of screening out. And it's the kind of thing where you've got to set the tone right at the beginning of the game. You got to screen out. If you don't, then they kind of feel like, they got free range to the glass. And a lot of times that's exactly what happened. It's hardly a body on them. So, but they were very efficient offensively. They got to the free throw line. I think the other thing is Illinois turned the ball over a ton and fouled a lot. So if they could have eliminated some of those, then it might have been a different outcome. But to Iowa's credit, they got to the free throw line and took advantage of some of Illinois' turnovers, and that was probably the difference in the game.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not going to complain about officiating when Iowa got to the free throw line 30 times. But as you said, Illinois was just fouling a lot. I mean, I think all those were good calls. And I didn't see – you may have had a better perspective since you were at the game. I didn't see Brad Underwood really complaining about officiating in that second half.
No.
So I think, as you said, they just play physical. And Iowa, as I said earlier before this game even started, Iowa had gotten out-rebounded. Let me find the total here. They'd gotten out-rebounded in every one of the previous 4 meetings against the Illini, and of course that continued today. But they're in the previous 4 games against Illinois, Iowa had been defeated on the glass 174-129. They got out-rebounded by 29 boards last year in Carver. You probably remember the game, and of course that was a Kofi Coburn team, a little bit different. But Coleman Hawkins and what's the guy's name? The big guy down low.
Yeah, he was a handful.
They just play. What does Brad Underwood's team do to make it difficult on Iowa, besides just Iowa having to play zone more or being more comfortable in the zone? What do they do to Iowa to make it difficult to rebound?
Well, they go to the glass hard. When that shot goes up, they swarm it, and we just didn't get enough bodies on body. And they're athletic, and so the way you take athleticism, ways you get into their body and try to take their legs away. And we just didn't do a very good job of that, and right from the get-go. And like I said, then it gives the other team the idea, well, hey, they're not going to check us out all game. Let's just keep going. And they did. I don't know how many offensive rebounds they end up getting, but I bet it's close to 15.
Good call. 13 for Illinois, and compared to just Iowa with 8, not a terrible number, I don't think. But for the day, Iowa did struggle on the defensive end. What did you think of Iowa's defense as a whole?
I thought it was okay. It was good enough to win. They're still struggling a little bit with dribble penetration. That one little guard got a bunch of baskets going with his right hand to the glass. But in other possessions, they made it difficult. They just couldn't get the rebounds, which really hurts your defense. If they'd have rebounded a little better, the numbers probably would have reflected that. But certainly wasn't a bad performance, and it was a good enough performance to win. But their offense certainly helped out.
The phone number to call in to ask Coach Close a question, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. Let's go to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. James, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Good. How are you, James?
I'm good. Better now that they won. I mean, I was texting you a little earlier. I just felt like the rotations just looked different. I don't know if that was just me, but I just felt like the rotations looked different. That's why they're getting so many open looks from 3. Because it looked like we're playing one side of the court, and then early. I'm talking about early when I message you, early in the game when they started hitting a couple open threes. I thought they just started looking like they were rotating too far to one side.
Gary, is there something to that? Or the way I respond to that, as far as Iowa maybe not rotating quickly enough, I think Illinois moves the ball. I mean, they're not a terrific offensive team. I think they, for the most part, make their point. They're living on the defensive end. But with that being said, that ball was popping in the first half. I thought Illinois moved the ball really well, which made it hard on Iowa's D in the first half.
Yeah, I'd agree. And they cut hard. They do a good job of cutting and screening and put a lot of pressure on the defense. So, yeah, they were very sharp in the beginning offensively.
James?
But yeah, I feel like it was a good way to fight to get the win, especially the way Tony played in the second half. And Sanford hit that big time three. That three Sanford hit was probably one of the clutches he's hit, maybe in his career.
That was a huge three. Yeah, that was a big time three.
Yeah, and he had, to an extent, I shouldn't say he'd struggled. He was, 2 of 5 up to that point.
Yeah.
He had a couple threes earlier in the game, Gary, that he would normally knock down that were open, and he missed. And you're waiting for him to hit one of those, and it just seems like, and this is the parallel I draw in my mind, Gary. We, of course, we just finished with a 6-year, almost Jess Settles-like career for Jordan Bohannon, a career in which he made countless big threes and big moments late in games, and it just feels like perhaps Peyton Sandfort, or maybe not even perhaps, very likely Peyton Sandfort is that next guy that Iowa turns to in the clutch. I know he missed 2 threes at Michigan State that would have won them the game, but he's fearless, and I don't think that he's made so many big shots this year. I mean, just this season, you think about the game against Rutgers, how many big shots? Northwestern the other night, Michigan at home. Talk about what does it take as a coach? You've had guys who are clutch down the stretch. What does it take to hit big shots like that?
Well, it takes, a lot of guys don't want to take those shots. So it takes some courage. It takes some confidence. He's been in his backyard, been in his gym since he could walk, shooting. So he's got a lot of confidence in himself, and he can get it off quick, which can be an asset when he's heavily guarded. But I think it's courage and confidence, and he's got both. And I agree. I think he's got a chance to be a guy you can turn to for big shots. Fran did, at Michigan State, and that three tonight was really big.
Any final thoughts, James?
Yeah, one more thing too, and we've been talking about rebounding for a while. All three of us have, just in the way. But I feel like this is kind of the issue, and obviously with Edey is different because he's 7'4", but this is kind of the issue where they were playing 3 dudes over 6'10". We have 0 dudes that we play that are over 6'10". So sometimes even if they crash it hard too, they're also going to have the better wingspan. They're more at risk of getting it if you have 2 guys in there over 6'10", and we have 0.
I see that to an extent. I appreciate the call, James. I see that to an extent, Gary, but here's why I disagree with James, and you tell me if I'm wrong. I think most of Iowa's issues rebounding the ball this season, and they've actually rebounded better as a whole this year than I expected them to, because they've played more zone than I maybe expected them to. But to me, it's just a matter of finding a body, whether he's 7 foot tall or he's 6'5". Meyer had at least 1 or 2 where he just cut right through several Iowa defenders to grab an offensive board.
Right.
I mean, there were some where Hawkins is, I thought it was an over the back, but he's going over the top. And of course, height helps you there. But what percentage of rebounding is height, and what percentage of it is just grit and smarts?
Well, I mean, how tall is Hawkins?
6'10".
Is he that big?
That's what they said on the broadcast, 6'10".
Wow. I didn't realize he was that tall. He doesn't look 6'10". But he's very, very athletic, and he goes to the glass hard. He probably had 5 or 6 offensive rebounds. They could not keep him off the glass. And as we mentioned earlier, the way you do it is you get into their bodies, and you can't jump if somebody's checking your legs out. It's almost impossible. So we did not do a good enough job of that. And I'm sure they'll show that on some clips, that shot goes up and they're turning and looking and standing straight up and down and not finding a body. And that's something they're going to have to get better at real quick, because that's a problem.
Before we get to our next caller, Gary, thoughts on the Orange Crush controversy pregame?
Hey, they got caught. Good job of catching them. They brought the, I think, Cedar Rapids Boys and Girls Club out of the timeout, and the place went crazy. So,
yeah.
Nice try, but we got caught.
Polanski, appreciate the super chat. Coach Close and Corey, 2 plays with 1:14 until the end. Can you guess they are both passes from the same guy? I'm assuming he's talking about Connor out of bounds. Is that what he's referring to here, Gary?
I'm not sure. With what?
I think Lemansky will have to clear this up. I'm assuming he's talking. Well, no, I don't know. I don't know what you're going to have to clear it up, Lemansky, because I'm not following you here. I will say this. Can you clear this up? Because Stephen Bardo was confused. Why did Iowa get to reset the clock as it relates to the half court line and advancing the ball past half court? Because I believe the clock had started at 20 there at the end, and they had to call 2 timeouts. Does a timeout reset?
I believe a timeout resets it. Yeah, none of it's knocked out of bounds, but I think I think a timeout resets it. I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay. Before we want to give a plug to our sponsor, but we're going to get to our caller who's been patiently waiting on hold. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
This is Doug from Ames.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, Doug.
I'm calling from Kinnick Stadium. I'm just getting out of the game, trying to get on Melrose.
You're in a rush to get home. Gary's still at the arena.
Yeah, I was going to say hi, but yeah, my dad wanted to get home. We're trying. This is one of the few Saturday games, so trying to get home by 6:30. So
what'd you think of the game, Doug?
We really enjoyed it. A lot of Illinois people there, but I'm using Bluetooth. I'm not used to this, so yeah, if I'm not sounding right, I'm sorry. But yeah, we really enjoyed it. Tony played awesome, and they still have trouble on defense, and rebounding was an issue, but we really enjoyed the game. Tony played really good, and it's good to see Patrick back and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Patrick still seems to be, I don't want to say in a funk, Gary. You take some time off, it's hard to get going. He doesn't seem like himself yet.
No, his rhythm's not there. His confidence is not there. It's going to take a little time. Boy, it'd be great if we could get him, because that'd be a big boost. But he's going to have to be brought on, slowly till he gets his confidence and his timing and conditioning. And yeah, you sit out that long, it's gonna be a little bit.
But Gary, right now Iowa doesn't need him necessarily. I mean, they're winning. They've won 7 of their last 9 without him. And I'm not saying the when he came back was orchestrated as it relates to the season. I think it was because he was ready to come back mentally and emotionally. Right. But you just wonder, when he did come back, right at the end of January, it gives him an entire month to get geared up. And that's how I look at it. They're winning without him, but you get a month to get geared up, and all of a sudden you have an extra weapon heading into March.
Absolutely. And I think that's the way they'll approach it. Just, one day at a time, one game at a time, and hopefully you can build on it. And by the time the games really count in the Big Ten tournament and hopefully the NCAA tournament, he'll be in a better place.
Anything else, Tony? Or Tony, I'm sorry. Doug. My bad, Doug. That's why he was silent.
Oh.
Turnover for Corey.
Oh.
Turned it over. Yep.
Oh.
Let me turn it over to you, Doug.
Well, I only got a few more minutes. I'm going to try to get on to I-80 here in a few seconds. So, we're trying to play for that double bye. I think 12-8 will get us in the top 4. And I think the NCAA tournament is definitely, we should be looking at seeding now. I think that we're definitely in contention to get hopefully a better season at 8 and 9. So we'll see how the next few go. I look forward to hearing you guys' view on Purdue and what you guys think we have to do to stop Zach Edey. Again, thank you for taking my call. And like I said, we really enjoyed the game. Hopefully we can get to a couple more. Thank you, Corey.
Appreciate you calling the Iowa Smokehouse calling line. Appreciate that, Doug. Travel safely.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, we're going to get to we want to keep you we don't want to keep you too long here, Gary, because I know you got family and you got other stuff going on here. So, but before we get off, I do want to ask you about Purdue. Before we get to that, appreciate this comment from Circle Herc. Who even is this Gary Close guy? He just gets to hang out courtside after the games. Who does he think he is? Must know somebody over there. I think that's probably
just a couple
case. People. Let's get to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
Lemansky, Corey.
Lemansky, how you doing, buddy?
Well, I love the sport of basketball. My super chat will not surprise anybody, but the pass for the last three, that was Connor McCaffrey. Inbounding the ball till time ran out on every time was Connor McCaffrey with the timeout. And when we did inbound the ball, did you notice how weird that ball bounced twice till it got to Tony Perkins? he put spin on that sucker or something. But for all those young people listening to your program, you can be as valuable as Chris Murray if you play a role and you do it to the ultimate nth degree. He's a great basketball player, even if he doesn't score a lot of points. I'll hang up and enjoy the show.
Thank you, Lemansky. He's talking about Connor McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And yet
he is a very good passer.
I've been fighting with people for the last 2 to 3 years on this, Gary, because I wasn't a Connor McCaffrey believer in his freshman and sophomore years. He's gotten a lot better. I mean, he's certainly gotten better from 3. And the haters have kind of went away now that he makes threes at a high rate, at high clip. But he is, when he leaves, I don't care if he's Fran's son or not, like, he's going to be a big loss because this team he is big for this team. He just on both. He's a good defender. I don't think he's a great defender. He's a good defender, great passer, great leader, really good 3-point shooter now. Can you speak to what we're seeing from Connor in his final year here?
No, I think you've touched on any smart player, and you feel very comfortable when he takes the ball out of bounds, which is not an easy thing to do. I think a lot of times you just kind of take that for granted, especially in a situation like that. So, and he's got some toughness to him. And if he wasn't the coach's son, he probably would be one of the most favorite players on the team. But sometimes that's not easy to do. But he's earned his stripes, and I agree. I think when he goes, it'll leave a hole.
I want to take a moment to thank Iowa Smokehouse. They're sponsoring the show this evening and throughout the month of March. Appreciate this from Iowa Smokehouse. And if you need great snacks for game day, and of course, plenty of opportunities because we've got game days out the wazoo coming up here over the next month and a half. Of course, the Super Bowl coming up next week. Great things ahead. You need yourself some Iowa Smokehouse. Tasting is believing. They've got beef jerky, flavorful meat sticks. Their delicious steak bites are awesome. They've even got some ketchups and barbecue sauces. You can browse their selection by going to iowasmokehouse.com. And as you saw on the bottom ticker, iowasmokehouse.com, use the code Hawkeye for 15% off. And how about this? You make a purchase of $50 or more, you get free shipping. How about that deal from an Iowa company, Iowa Smokehouse? Tasting is believing. So appreciate Iowa Smokehouse this evening or this afternoon.
I'm hungry. That sounds good.
It's great. In fact, I was going to
put those food commercials on here, and we haven't eaten in a while.
You don't eat at the games, Gary? They don't.
They deliver some Smokehouse right here at the press row.
I was going to say, did they? They didn't. I figured when you're at the games, they serve you on their hands and knees.
No, that's not true.
We got a couple more minutes with Coach Close. We're going to let him slide. The phone number to call in is 515-635-1601. You can also call in by StreamYard. The link is in the description below, and I'll throw it again here in the live chat for anybody who's interested in asking Coach Close a question. But we do have a couple of questions here to get to in our chat. HawkLove23, is Josh O healthy? Will he be ready for the Purdue game? He's not playing. We saw Riley Mulvey briefly, Gary. I don't know where his Ogundele's rehab is. I heard he was getting close, but Mulvey has played a little bit in spot minutes. I wonder, not to completely shift our attention to Purdue yet, but I wonder if he doesn't play some against Zach Edey next Thursday.
Well, Josh did dress and went through warm-ups, but it's been so long. I'd be shocked if he plays against a team like Purdue right out of the gate. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Mulvey does play a few minutes just to bang on him a little bit. I don't think it'll be significant minutes, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does get some.
Tacoon says Indiana was spanking Purdue at the half. It's now 54-45. So you're right. It was a 15-point lead for the Hoosiers, but the Purdue Boilermakers have outscored Indiana 10-4 in the second half here. So Purdue fighting here, and of course they've been dominant all year. But this is going to Bloomington and trying to knock off the Hoosiers in Assembly Hall is never an easy thing to do.
No.
Coach, I wanted to ask you, can you please, he's probably already gone. Can you please track down Courtney Green and teach him what verticality is? Please. I need you to teach him what verticality, that call. And again, I'm not complaining about reffing as a whole. That call in the first half on Rebraca was one of the worst calls I think I've ever seen.
I'll have to go back and look at it.
You go back and look at it. Rebraca jumped straight up Contact happens. Now, one of Rebrach's arms went down. It was after the contact occurred. He didn't touch, who was it? Hawkins whatsoever.
Hawkins took that big fall. Yeah.
Yes. I think the fall kind of baited.
It might have.
Courtney
You
Green.
got to be a thespian. You got to be able to act a little bit to get calls. That's part of being a basketball player. You might have got one there.
I'm curious. What do you think of Scott Underwood? I know you were retired when he entered the league, correct?
Brad Underwood, the Illinois coach. Yeah.
Scott Underwood.
Yeah, I don't know him. Actually, I knew him when he was back at Western Illinois, which was one of his first coaching jobs. But I don't know him real well. But his team plays with a lot of heart. They play hard. They're tough, physical. They're probably kicking themselves. They don't turn the ball over as much as they did, and don't foul as much. They probably could sneak out of here, but they didn't do it. So, but they had been on a roll, so that's makes this win all the more better because Illinois had been playing really good basketball.
Reason I ask you about Brad is we had the incident after the Penn State game earlier this season where he just ripped into his guys in the postgame press conference. I mean, absolutely ripped into them, insulting their leadership skills, lack thereof. And then you have the situation the other night where he kind of draws attention. I thought he was kind of drawing attention to himself. I mean, he has every right to handle the halftime situation the way he wants to handle it. He comes out from the locker room against Nebraska like 7 minutes early and just sits there on the bench. Maybe that's not to draw attention to himself, but it just seems odd. He's kind of an interesting head coach.
Yeah, he's got some unique ways to try to get his point across. For the most part, he's been pretty effective. His teams have been very competitive since he's been there, and they're a tough out. So you got to give him credit for that. And I think they'll be a tough out the rest of the way.
Let's go to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey. Zach, how's it going?
Good, Zach. How are you?
Good. Great day to be a Hawkeye.
Amen.
You bet, Zach.
The only question I have, and I'll let you get to more callers, is it concerning as well that, it seems like the second half, the rotations in the past couple games have really kind of stopped. France seems to only play like 6 players in the second half. Is that concerning, especially come Big Ten tournament time because of the amount of games, whether it's 3 or 4 potentially in 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't think there's any question that his bench gets shorter in the second half. Now, you do have the TV timeouts where you get the breaks every 4 minutes. But as you mentioned, when you get back-to-back games, it'll be interesting to see if he changes that a little bit. But I think he's going with the lineups that he think he's got the best chance to get W's, and they need W's to get into the tournament, and so far it's worked pretty well.
Yep. Can't argue with that.
Yep, for sure.
But
Thanks, Zach.
Again.
Oh, I think I cut him off.
Gee, that's another turnover.
That's right. You'd be pulling me if you were still coaching, Gary.
You'd be gone, right? You'd be sitting right
I'd
next
be
to
riding on the bench every night, let's be honest. So I do want to ask you this question. Tony Perkins, I mentioned him earlier, and I saw the question here from Jared in the chat. He says, do you see Perkins taking this momentum through the rest of the year? Is there something that you saw? Maybe this is a hard question to really answer, but is there something that you've observed as a coach over the years where you can help a young guy who's been struggling to, take the wins, take the moments where he is confident and help him to ride that going forward, if that makes sense? Because Perkins had, the reason I asked that, Tony had a 22-point night against Maryland a couple weeks ago. And it seemed like that was just like a blip on the radar, and he continued to struggle, if you know what I mean. So how do you utilize what he did tonight? Because, of course, again, he was sensational with a total of 32 points on the night and was unbelievable from the free throw line. How do you help Tony to drive this and ride this forward?
Yeah, he was terrific. He's a little streaky, but young players, developing players, that can happen. I think you just encourage him to take one game at a time and not get too high when you play well, and not get too low when you struggle, and study a lot. What's been successful, what's not. Just continue to get better, continue to learn, continue to develop, and when you're handling the ball as much as he handled it tonight, sometimes that can be difficult. But that was certainly encouraging. Now, we can't expect him to score 32 every night, but this game's got to give him some confidence. What I liked about it is he didn't force anything. He let the game come to him, read the defense as well, got good shots. He rarely took a bad one, and that's got something to do with shooting percentage, is taking quality shots.
And it is incredible when you look at the stat line, Gary, because Philip Rebraca, that's 13 on the night, but 5'11", kind of quiet night for Philip. I think maybe struggled a bit with the physicality inside. Illinois can match what he brings. Ulis was quiet with 2. Connor McCaffrey didn't score. We saw Dix hit 1 3. Patrick had 3. So it just seems like, knock on wood, this team has multiple guys stepping up different nights, whether it's Sanford and Rebraca on Tuesday against Northwestern. Today it was Tony Perkins. You would expect that when Patrick gets his feet back under him and gets going, he can be that guy certain nights. How difficult is Iowa to defend right now? They put up 81 against a really good Illinois defense.
Yeah, they're a handful offensively, and I thought at times they over dribbled and got a little stagnant. And they still put up 81 points. So, I think the coaching staff probably feels that they still haven't hit full stride at either end of the court, and of course that's your quest, is just to keep getting better. And boy, if they ever do put that together, they're going to really whack somebody. So they're in a good spot. They're improving, and they're putting themselves in position to play some meaningful games in March.
Last call on the phone lines for a final question for Coach Close. My final question for you, Gary, is regarding this game coming up on Thursday against Purdue. And as I say this, let me give you an update. Indiana leads by 9, so it's 59-50 with at the I believe it's the under 12 timeout over on ESPN. So battle there in Indiana between cross-state rivals, but Iowa will give up a lot as it relates to size, and Indiana does too, right? I mean, Trace Jackson Davis isn't the biggest.
Everybody does for 7'4". I mean,
everybody does.
Guy's ridiculous. Yeah,
absolutely. So, what? How does Iowa defend him?
Well, I think you make him work for as much as you can. I think you got to understand he's not going to be stopped. They could potentially double. You'd have to look at their lineup to see where that could possibly happen. I know teams have tried that in the past. He's so big that it's almost impossible to keep the ball from getting into him. Some teams would try to front people and this and that, but he's so big you just lob it over the top. So I think rebounding is going to be just as important. You can't give them 2 and 3 shots. I think Iowa's got to score in transition before he gets back and gets the rim protected. So rebounding is going to be really, really important. And then I think try to contain the other players and don't let 1 or 2 other players go off in addition to Edey, because he's going to get his points. He's just too good. But make him earn them. Don't give him any cheap ones. And make him play some defense at the other end. Make him get up and down the court.
Final call here for Coach Close. Thank you for calling the Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
Horny for the Hawkeyes.
All right. Good way to finish off your time here, Gary, as always.
We haven't had one of those in a while.
Well, he's, like I said, he's probably his mom probably grounded him, and now he's going to be going back into a timeout. So anyways, I'm sure you watched Rutgers win over Purdue, right? They won by 1. Purdue has had some close encounters, right? They found a way to beat Ohio State, but they probably shouldn't have won that game in Columbus. They won by 2. Found a way to beat Michigan State by 1. Found a way to beat Maryland by 3. Found a way to beat Michigan by 5. They're not invincible. Is there anything you take away from specifically from those close encounters that Iowa can replicate?
Well, I think when you go into a place like Purdue, you want to be in position at the end of the game to win it. And we've got guys on our team that can make some shots to win games. So that's a very, very difficult place to play. They're a very, very difficult team to play. Excuse me. But if they can stay in there and be in position, underneath the last TV timeout to make some plays, then maybe you can pull a surprise and get out of there with a great win. So it's going to take a monumental effort. There's no doubt. And it's not going to be any easier if they lose to Indiana.
Yeah, I think if you're an Iowa fan, you're rooting for Indiana to lose and blow that game.
Yeah, there might be some truth to that.
Joel says, too bad. Think the staff and players are doing great. Too bad you can't put Coach Close on the bench somewhere. I echo that. And but as I said,
I
to
can
Coach
be in charge of keeping Fran inside the box.
yeah, you're the get back guy, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Were you that for Bo Ryan or Coach Davis? I know they were different personalities.
Both coaches I had no problem with the officials, and so I didn't even have to worry about it, right?
But you had problems with the officials at times, so
Just one time.
Just one time. Who'd you have? But you got into it with someone with Iowa State, right? The Iowa State staff, didn't you?
Well, that was a long time ago. That escapes my memory.
Oh, okay. You'll have to think about that. And we'll talk about it. We talked about it a year ago, but
yeah.
Anyways,
Maybe another episode.
Sounds good. Coach Close, appreciate your time and
You
travel safe. Travel safely up those vaunted stairs. Are you going elevator? Or are you going up the stairs?
I have never been in the elevator.
Oh, they don't allow you back there.
I've been in the elevator a few times. No, I'm going to go up the stairs.
Okay.
52 rows.
All right. Just to match your age, right? 52 rows to match.
Exactly. How did you know that?
I'm on. I remember I had the two turnovers. I had the 2 turnovers earlier. I'm making up for it.
But you came back with a couple of good dimes. Good job.
As I always do.
Right.
Like
All right, Corey.
All right, Coach Close.
Go
We'll
Hawks.
talk to you Thursday.
Take care.
Thanks. All right, folks. That was fun. And of course, I'm here for the next half hour or so. I want to thank Iowa Smokehouse for sponsoring the show here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. And yes, if you need terrific snacking on game day, who doesn't, right? Or terrific snacking anytime, how about Iowa Smokehouse and their flavorful meat sticks or their delicious steak bites? They've got such a wide array of snacks and different meat products. You've got to visit their website to check it all out. Tasting is believing. Visit www.iowasmokehouse.com. Use the code Hawkeye for 15% off your order. And what's unique about Iowa Smokehouse, not only will you get free shipping on orders of $50 or more, but you'll see products you won't see anywhere else. And they are available at some of the major grocers out there, but certainly you can't pass this deal up. 15% off by using that code Hawkeye on their website, iowasmokehouse.com. So again, Super Bowl coming out. Get your orders in now so that you can have them for Super Bowl time here in a little over a week. All right, folks, the line is open. If you want to call in, talk about Iowa, whatever you want to talk about, right? Hopefully it's Iowa. Let's not talk about I guess we can talk about Purdue, Indiana. That game really close right now. Purdue has fought back, and it's a 6-point game, 65-59 late in the game. Well, actually just under the 10-minute mark over on ESPN. So stick right here. We'll keep giving you updates, maybe have that on the TV on the side, and we'll be here with you for at least the next 20 or 30 minutes. Robert said, let's get this. I want to make sure I have the phone line up for everybody to see here. Phone line is 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601 to call, or of course you can do so by means of StreamYard. The link is in the description below. I appreciated this comment from Robert. Iowa Hoops is the opposite of the football team. Great offense and struggles with the D, but very fun to watch. Yeah, that's the difference. And I have fun watching Iowa football's defense, but I understand where you're coming from, and I've had a lot of people make that comment. There are games, though. It seems like Fran has, now knock on wood with this, right? But Fran has seemingly gotten his guys to lock in for longer stretches of time. Now, today wasn't a great example. I didn't think they played great D at any point today, but it hurts when, you're going to feel that way, especially when you're giving a team second and third and fourth chances. And as we mentioned earlier, 13 offensive rebounds for the day for the Illini. That hurts, right? And that's going to make it hard to get stops, clean stops. But I think for the most part, go back to the Michigan State game a couple weeks ago. I thought in stretches today they were pretty good. I thought the second half against Northwestern Iowa was really good defensively. There is a difference. I mean, when is Iowa's offense ever really good against a good team? I hate to say that, but it hasn't been for at least 3 years. Last 2 years, right? Going back to 2020. They were good in 2020, given the struggles of some other teams. I think that played a role. But anyways, I digress. Let's stick to basketball after this question. Nick Jackson update. I'll check in on that. I haven't checked on Nick here last few days. Last I was told was earlier in the week that we should get a decision pretty soon from Nick, and that it was down to Iowa and Oklahoma. So we'll see. I don't know that NIL is a big pull for him, but of course he's the linebacker from Virginia that visited Iowa City here a week ago. Visited the same weekend, I believe, as Rusty Feth. How about this? If this is this true? Let me confirm this. Chris says that Iowa is now the number one offense on KenPom. That's true. Unbelievable. They are the number one offense. Well, that's what will happen when you put up 90 a game. I think with this performance closer to probably 85, 84, 85 in the last 3 games against 3 of the best defensive teams in the conference. All of these teams, by the way, all 3 teams that Iowa has beaten here recently have been teams this past week, right? They've had 3 games in 6 days. All of these teams were in second place when Iowa beat them. Now the Hawkeyes are in a tie for third. Rutgers alone in second, but Iowa has the tiebreaker against Rutgers. I had somebody earlier in the day make a comment to me because I had said if Rutgers loses to Michigan State today, Iowa moves into a tie for second place, which would have been great. But look, it's February 4th, right? We got another month of the regular season, over a month of the regular season left. So actually, Rutgers beating Michigan State in the long run helps. Now, it's just 1 game, but the reason it helps is Iowa has the tiebreaker against the Scarlet Knights. They've got 2 wins against Rutgers, who right now is alone in second place. So if Iowa could, if things play out like they currently stand, Rutgers ends up being in second place. Iowa, if they can get to a tie with Rutgers, they would have the 2-way tiebreaker with Rutgers. So my point is I'd rather be in a tiebreaker with Rutgers than Michigan State because, of course, Michigan State beat Iowa in East Lansing, and I don't believe Iowa plays Michigan State in Carver. By the way, Purdue now trailing by just 4. Hoosiers, trying to dig deep and hold on against the number 1 ranked team in the country. 65-61, 7:30 to go in that one. Joseph says, only problem with double teaming Edey is he is good at setting up the 3, and they have some dime shooters. It's happening to Indiana right now. Who was it? Was it Wade Looking Bill on this very show, Joseph? We'll have to go back and watch that. I might even cut a segment out in preparation for that game as kind of a short preview. But Wade talked about how you beat Purdue, and his best bet, and I tend to agree with him, is you have to double Edey and hope that Purdue misses threes, because it's almost impossible with his size at this level. And he's going to have more difficulty once you get to the pros. But at this level, it's almost impossible because he's so skilled around the rim. It's not like he has to dunk the ball. He can hit little mini hooks. He's good over just about either shoulder, especially over the right shoulder or over the left shoulder. But my point is, I think you have to agree with Wade. You have to double team and hope that they don't shoot the ball well, because they haven't always shot the ball well. They do have guys that can make threes. I think their last game out, they set one of their guys set a record. Who was it? Wasn't Morton. It was, I believe, was it Lawyer or First? One of those guys set a record for most threes made. Might have been Gillis, actually. Might have been Mason Gillis set a record, I think, for most threes made in a game in Purdue history, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty certain I'm correct in saying that. So they can make threes, but I would rather take my chances with them missing threes as opposed to somehow stopping Edey one-on-one. And the problem with trying to go one-on-one, too, is you're going to get in foul trouble, and Iowa just doesn't have the depth. You do not want to be forced to play Riley Mulvey a ton of minutes. Now, he may spot him some minutes. He played admirably against Edey last year in the Big Ten tournament. I will say this, Zach Edey's a different player than he was last March. He's much more effective from further out. He's obviously bettered his stamina. So I think you'll see Riley Mulvey in stretches. But if Fran can get away with doubling him and hopefully Purdue's missing threes, they'd prefer to play Rebrache at the 5 the entire game. Fran's proven that. He's going to play those big guys in stretches if he has to, but he prefers to play small. And that's partly because of how good Rebrache is, but that's also partly because of the struggles Iowa's had developmentally at the 5 here recently. I say that, but Rebrache is a 5. He's playing the 5, and he has been absolutely sensational this year. I can't imagine where Iowa would be without Philip Rebrache's services. Jason says it'd be nice if the crowd could be that engaged and loud for every home game. It would be. It's now, granted, it is tough. I understand the struggle here, Jason. It's a Saturday afternoon. You love these games, but I think that's kind of the perfect time. But I see I say this over and over again. I see other schools packing their gyms even on weeknights. Now, there are some that are open, right? There are plenty of schools out there that aren't filling up their stadiums, their arenas. Purdue's a good example. Now, you're the number 1 team in the country. You're probably going to sell out regardless. but they seem to pack it every night, regardless of tip time. I think part of it is student involvement. I've been advocating for a long time. Move the students, get them behind the benches. They're so far away up in the end zones. It's the opposite of Kinnick. Move the student section. You're going to have to do something for the donors, but money talks. Do something for the donors. Move them. Get the students over there. Get some promotions going. Actual promotions that mean something to students to get them at games. Maybe it's not giving away tickets, but it's got to be something. First of all, you got to do something, right? They haven't done anything. They have not done anything. They haven't moved the students. I don't think they've done enough promotions to get them there. But again, we saw that there are students who are willing to be engaged when everything around them works out perfectly. It's a Saturday afternoon. Iowa's playing well. They're winning. Iowa's won 7 of their last 9 games in the first sellout we've had all year. And they're a tournament team right now. There's no question. Right now, they are a tournament team. So I agree with you. Okay, let me throw the phone number up here on the bottom ticker. Thank you to Iowa Smokehouse. Again, a reminder, 15% off with that code Hawkeye. Receive free shipping when you purchase $50 or more. I'm going to throw the phone number up on the bottom ticker there, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. I'll also throw it up here in the live chat. If you want to call in, we can talk this game. We've got about 15 to 20 more minutes here live. And of course, this will be, I don't have any plans to be live except with Mark Rogers. We don't take calls during that show. That's Tuesday. Won't be live again until Thursday. So get your calls in now. If you've got a question or comment, and we'll get your call on the air. Dom says there needs to be bleachers in that large open area behind the basket. It's noticeable. Well, again, that's the distance between the baskets, the end zones, and the student section. It is a problem, and it's something that I agree needs to be resolved. Sam says, which win is more impressive, Iowa or Iowa State? You got to go Iowa State because they beat Kansas, who's a top 10 ranked team. Now, with that being said, both games were at home. Illinois right now, somebody asked this earlier, is this a quad 1 win? Well, the net rankings right now, let me pull up the net rankings. As of right now, Illinois is 25 in the net, which means it's another quad 1 win for Iowa. All right, another quad 1 win for Iowa. With that being said, that moves Iowa's quad 1 number to, let's see, is it 6? 6 quad 1 wins, correct? I believe I'm right in saying that. 6 quad 1 wins for Iowa. So there's 6 and 5, if my math is correct here. I believe that they had another... I believe they had 6 quad. See, there's a couple teams that are right in the fringe. Maryland's 1. Iowa, of course, beat Maryland. Maryland was top 30. They're now 32. So Iowa did have 6 wins. So this is not quad 1 win number 7 because Maryland moved back down. They're now 32nd in the net. They were 30th. So that's going to be one of those that you're rooting for Maryland to inch ahead of that 30 line. Maryland has struggled mightily on the road this year. And we saw that, of course, in Carver. They're 1-5 on the road. 3-7 against quad 1 teams. They don't have any bad losses, but that's hurting them. They don't have a ton of quality wins. And so that's a game, if you're Iowa, you're rooting for Clemson to try to find a way back onto that quad 1 line. That was a neutral site win for Iowa down in Florida, not Naples, but in Florida. If Clemson could make up some ground there, they could become a quad 1 win. That's 7. If Maryland could become a quad 1 win, they're not far off. That's 8. Iowa's got an opportunity to be right there with 7-8 quad 1 wins, which would almost be, we're talking top 5 or 6 in the country. Purdue's got a lot of them. I'm going to pull this up here to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. Let me pull up the site, and I'll give everybody a reference to this site that I'm talking about, I think. So I believe Bart Torvik is up to date on this. No, it's not the one I want here. Let's see. So if you're looking at Bart Torvik, actually is a great, if you're into stats, college basketball stats, Bart Torvik has great stuff, great analytics for college basketball as a whole. Iowa's 10-7 overall against quad 1 and 2 teams. All right. Now to put that in perspective, there are only 8 other teams in the country with 10 or more quad 1/2 wins. I'll repeat that. Iowa is 10-7 in quad 1/quad 2 games. There are only 8 other teams in the country with as many quad 1/2 games. So that is impressive. And there's only 3 teams below Iowa with 9 quad 1/2 wins. Again, as I mentioned, Iowa now sits at 6 quad 1 wins. As far as teams with 6 quad 1 wins, very similar stat to what I just told you, quad 1 and 2 combined. Just 9 teams in the country with at least 6 quad 1 wins. And Iowa was one of those teams. If Iowa got to 7, if Maryland moved up a bit, there are only, right as of right now, there are only 6 teams in the country with 7 or more quad 1 wins. So that should give you an idea of where we're at with Iowa. They obviously have an opportunity for more quad 1 wins. One coming up on Thursday. Boy, what a win that would be. You get to West Lafayette. I'm not going to give any. I'm not going to say Iowa's a lock for the tournament. They do that because you could always collapse. But boy, if you could find a way to do that, would be massive. A massive win on the road. One of the best wins in all of college basketball. Right now, Rutgers has one of the best wins, maybe the best win in college basketball, going to Purdue earlier, or going to Purdue earlier this year and winning. Absolutely spectacular win for the Scarlet Knights. And Bart Torvik is a great site. That's not the site I was thinking about. And I should have had this ready earlier, but we'll have to talk about this on a future show. I believe it might be bball. It's bball.net. If anybody's heard of bball.net, and it actually shows, it's nice because it itemizes what Iowa's quad 1 and 2 wins are. So again, right now they've got 5 quad 1 wins, as I stated. And let's see here. So yeah, Maryland moved down, as I mentioned. What's funny is, let's see here, the Nebraska loss. I believe the Nebraska loss, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're maybe a geek as it relates to this stuff, the Nebraska loss, I believe, is 1 spot away from being a quad 3 loss. I think I'm correct in saying that. I could be wrong, but right now they're 99th in the net. So let me just confirm that, because again, I'm trying to give you some information as it relates to resumes. So yes, I'm correct. No, I'm sorry, I'm incorrect in saying that. They're safe. That's safely a quad 2 loss. They would have to be 136 or lower in the net. Nebraska would have to be 136 or lower in the net for that game to become a quad 3 loss for Iowa. So they're safe. You got to be 136 or lower to be a quad 3 loss. So anyways, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but it got brought up about which win was more impressive. Iowa's win over Illinois or Iowa State's over Kansas. They were both great wins, but beating Kansas anytime is fantastic. Brent says, help me to better understand the plus minus column I'm seeing on the far right of the box score sheet posting on the Iowa men's basketball site. So a plus minus stat, Brent, is Iowa's point margin when that said player was in the game. So I'll give you an example here. In fact, we might as well, since we're talking about it and we don't have any calls on the line right now. Before we do that, before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, because I love talking about this stuff, but I want to take a moment to talk about Brad Van Meter down at State Farm in Des Moines. He is serving his clients border to border here in the state of Iowa, and he's been doing so since 1999. He's part of the largest auto insurance company in the country. In fact, State Farm recently celebrated their 100th year of being in business. But again, Brad has been in business there at State Farm since 1999, and certainly he'll take care of you. He'll give you personalized, individualized attention. That's what you need from a good insurance agent, somebody who's taking care of your needs. They can offer products all across the state of Iowa, folks. Give them a call, 515-256-6480, 515-256. Let me repeat it, 515-256-6480, or online at bradvanmeter.com, in person at 4229 Fleur Drive in Des Moines. And remember, folks, when you're supporting the sponsors here, it's helping this show to keep going, right? I mean, I don't think I have to walk you through that. You understand that. As you support our sponsors, you're supporting us here from the Hawkeye of the Storm and programming like this. So let me go ahead and share, since we don't have any callers right now, let me go ahead and share my screen so everybody can, because we don't often talk about analytics here unless Coach Patterson's on. Here are let me pull, what do I want here? Let's get the box score. right, so hopefully you can see this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of me. And what I'll do here is I'll zoom in so everybody can see what we're talking about. And if you know this, just bear with us so we can get everybody on the same page. This column right here, the plus minus, of course, is the point differential while that said player is on the floor. So in other words, the best point differential for Illinois, Jaden Epps was +8, as was Coleman Hawkins. RJ Melendez was -15. That means that Illinois got outscored by 15 points when Melendez was on the floor. I would be anxious. That's a good question. I wish it had been asked earlier because I'd be curious to hear what Coach Close says about plus minus stats and how much do you really read into those stats. On the flip side, as great as Tony Perkins was tonight, he had a +8, which is really solid, right? Second best on the team. But look at this number. Peyton Sandfort +21. So that's a great question because you look at Peyton Sandfort, he's got 9 points. It's 6 rebounds. He had just 1 turnover. 21 +21. That's a kind of an outlier there. So that tells you, that does indicate something. It indicates that Peyton Sandfort is making a difference in this game. And I think anybody that understands college basketball would attest to that because he's such a threat from outside. I do think Illinois, they do a good job scouting. That's one thing I wanted to ask Coach Close about. It appears to me from the get-go, Illinois they understood tendencies, and they're locked in on the scouting report. And Iowa struggled to get some of the shots early, including Sandfort. Now, as the game went on, he's just too good, and Iowa's offense operates way too smoothly to not get some open threes. But for the most part, I thought Illinois played Peyton Sandfort well. But it still shows you that 21, that +21 next to Peyton Sandfort's name in the 21 minutes he was on the floor. Boy, that indicates he's doing great, great work. And, look, we all talk about who's starting games. He had the 5th most minutes of anybody on the team, more than Aaron Eulis. So doesn't always make a difference who starts, but it's who's playing. And I know Coach Close and Fran McCaffrey would both agree with that. So hopefully that answered your question as it relates to the plus-minus stat. Again, to recap here, folks, Iowa defeating Illinois 81-79. The Hawkeyes, this is always a tough game. Illinois plays physical. They're hard to rebound against. Iowa's been out-rebounded. I have the numbers here. Over the last 4 meetings, Iowa has been out-rebounded by a total of, I said this earlier, I believe, I think it's 170. Let's see here. 174 to 129 over the past 4 meetings against Illinois, not counting tonight. They've been out-rebounded 174 to 129. The last time Iowa played Illinois in Carver was last year. I think it was in either late December, early January, and the Hawkeyes were out-rebounded 52 to 23. That was that 2-game stretch where Iowa got killed on the glass against Iowa State and then got killed on the glass against Illinois. I know that was a different Illini team because they had Kofi Coburn, who just bullied everybody. But Iowa got out-rebounded again tonight. I told you the totals earlier. Rebounding totals for the game. Illinois winning that category 37 to 26. Turnovers. How about this? Iowa just 7 turnovers. That is a huge stat because Illinois had 14. We didn't talk about that with Coach Close. But Iowa has been turning the ball over more lately. Aaron Eulis just 1 turnover for the game. And he's handling the ball a lot. Even though he just played 18 minutes, he's handling the ball a lot, as did Josh Dix. He had just 1 turnover, but just played 6 minutes. Tony Perkins handled the ball a lot and had just 2 turnovers. Those are numbers you can live with, folks, especially when Tony's giving you 32 points on the night. And again, 9 fouls taken. 9. Tony Perkins got fouled 9 different times in this game. And when you get to the free throw line as many times as the Hawkeyes did, it's going to be difficult to overcome that if you're Illinois. I did think Jaden Epps went off at one point in that second half, and there's at times I look at Iowa and I say, identify the hot man. I tweeted that out at one point during the game. Sandfort struggled off the dribble with Epps, and Sandfort's going to struggle off the dribble against quick guards. Iowa made sure to switch Tony onto Epps, and Epps slowed down. Credit to Tony Perkins, who played well on both ends. He's really good, by the way, Jaden Epps is, and crafty around the basket. Iowa had a couple of really cheap reach-in fouls early in that second half. Clean that up. Again, most of the fouls down the stretch were called against the Illini, and I thought they were all good calls. The verticality call that was called a foul on Philip Rebracha in that first half, terrible call, in my opinion. Just completely terrible call by Courtney Green. But you're not surprised by it because Courtney Green, I believe, is probably the worst official in the Big Ten. Don't know anything about him personally, but as an official, he's not very good. One thing I didn't mention to Coach Close, how about Iowa? They're down 8 in that second half. They go to a timeout. They go to another timeout. Remember, you had Iowa called the timeout. Then you have I think it was the under 16 timeout, right? Tony Perkins comes back and goes 6 for 6 on I believe the next 3 possessions, 6 for 6 from the free throw line. He brought them back. If Tony Perkins doesn't step up in those moments, Iowa does not win this game. This game could have easily gotten away from him. Iowa was struggling defensively. As I mentioned, they were struggling on the glass. Tony Perkins took this game over in the second half. And we talked about total numbers for Tony. Let's talk about second half numbers for Tony Perkins. In the second half, Tony Perkins totaled 25 points. 25 of his 32 came in the second half. What a half! Like we all talk about Jared Uthoff. Remember the game at Iowa State years ago where he had 30 in one half? Luka Garza had games like that. 25 for Tony Perkins. But we're going to forget this quicker, unfortunately, because a lot of those were at the free throw line. But who cares? The guy draws fouls. He's physical, and he makes his free throws. 15 of 16. What a day for Tony Perkins. Just 2 boards. Actually had 0. I'm looking at second half stats. For the game, Tony Perkins, along with the 32 points, Tony had 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers. But his aggressiveness on the offensive end with the ball in his hands, and I thought he played solid defense against Illinois' very talented guards. Boy, what a difference. Again, they don't win this game. There's just no way they win this game without the services of Tony Perkins in this one. Did want to mention, too, let me find the comment here that I'm going through my notes here quickly as we're chatting here. Illinois got into the bonus, I believe, in that first half. They got into the bonus rather quickly. Iowa did a nice job the rest of the half not fouling. I don't know how much time was left on the clock, but they got in the bonus rather quickly. On the flip side, Iowa gets to the second half, and courtesy of Tony Perkins, they're in the bonus, the double bonus, most of that second half. And that just makes such a difference. That's another question I neglected to ask of Gary. How big of a difference it makes when you can get in that bonus early and when you're knocking down free throws. And I mean, for Tony in a close game to go, it's one thing if they're winning, if Iowa won a game by 20 and Perkins is 15 to 16, that's one thing. This is a close game. Every one of these free throws mattered. And you look at the final numbers for Tony, if he goes for the night, if he goes 12, or let's just say 13, 12, let's go 12 of 16. He goes 12 of 16. That's a pretty good number, right? 12 of 16, what's that, 6 of 8? I mean, 12 of 16. I'm thinking percentages here in my mind as I'm trying to crunch the numbers. 75% from the free throw line is pretty darn good, right? 12 of 16. However, they'd have lost the game if you're just looking apples to apples here because they won by 2. That's what a difference it made to go 15 to 16 from the free throw line. Every one of those free throws mattered. And it changed the dynamic there at the end with Illinois trying to miss that free throw because they had a free throw to get to within 1, but it wouldn't have helped them. So every single free throw made such a difference in this game. Credit to Tony Perkins for what he did. Michael Weber, appreciate the premium subscription. Michael, he says, enjoyed how much respect Bardo has for the Hawkeyes. He and Benetti were terrific. Carver was rocking today, gave them a big boost. Go Hawkeyes. Sked says, did we get an update on Josh Ogundele? Could really use him against Edey on Thursday. Talked with Coach Close about this. Had a conversation with Frank Henderson, who is Tony Perkins' uncle. And from what I've been told, Josh is close. Gary said he went through warmups today, but he hadn't played, Sked. So I think we're going to see a 7-footer. It's probably going to be Mulvey against Zach Edey. All right. We'll see. Maybe Fran goes with Josh Ogundele, but again, Josh is very green. It feels like this light's getting brighter. I feel like my face is getting brighter and my eyes are getting tired. Okay, so big game on Thursday. All hands on deck, no question about it. M. Finn says the Eastern Illinois game will come back to haunt us. I mean, we said that when it happened, it's going to affect them. I don't know about saying it come back to haunt us. How's it going to come back to haunt us? It's going to hurt them in seeding to an extent. Maybe a seed line, maybe not even a seed line. If they go beat Purdue on Thursday, I mean, we're going to be looking at that game back in December as a blip on the radar. I'm not saying it won't hurt their resume a bit, but I mean, everybody's going to have bad losses. Now, that was a really bad loss. I get it. But but I wouldn't say it's going to haunt us. If Iowa somehow ends up on the bubble and, we look back and say, yeah, if they had won that game that had been in, yeah, sure, I'd say that game haunted them. But I don't, as of right now, Iowa's not anywhere close to the bubble. And I'm no bracketologist, but from what I've heard and what I've been told, what I've seen, I'm guessing Iowa's an 8 to 9 seed would be my guess in the tournament. All right. See if I have any other updates for you. Thank you for this, Phil Parker's Paw. Yes, I'll give you an official live update of Purdue and Indiana. Right now, Indiana leads by 3, 73-70, 41 seconds left. And Indiana has the ball. So I think, unfortunately for Iowa, it appears that Indiana is going to knock off Purdue. It will be interesting to see what the pollsters do with Purdue if they lose. Not that it really matters, but if Purdue loses on the road, will they drop from being the number one team in the country? I still think they're the number one team in the country, even if they lose and I haven't watched this game. Of course, Houston has looked good. Tennessee, did they lose this week? Tennessee beat Auburn 46-43, lost to Florida. Yeah, I mean, Purdue might stay number one if they lose. Maybe Houston goes up there and takes the number one spot. I think Purdue's the best team in the country, whether they lose or whether they win today. Hummus Hero says Iowa seems like a 7 seed. I would agree with that. Right now, they're probably pretty close to the 8-9 line. I think they're better than that. I think they're closer to probably a 7. But the resume is what the resume is. And M. Finn earlier, he says EIU will knock us down at least one seed line. Yeah, that might be the case. But again, we'll see where. We'll see how far down. Honestly, if Iowa ends up being a 10, maybe that loss doesn't hurt you after all, because I'd rather be a 10 than a 9. That's just how I see it. I'd rather be an 11 than a 10, frankly, if you look at how the bracket is set up. So anyways, yes, Indiana back up by 5 now with 22 seconds left. So we'll see if they can close that game. All right, just making sure we don't have any final comments here. We've went our distance. Again, appreciate everybody. Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. You saw Iowa floor covering. Their link is in the description as well. Their logo was up. They're sponsoring the channel, the show. Please consider supporting our sponsors, folks. And, of course, Iowa Smokehouse. They're new. They just jumped on with us, and certainly appreciate their support here as we go to the home stretch here of basketball season. And as you support our sponsors, you are supporting us. They're, of course, sponsoring our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line, courtesy of Iowa Smokehouse. Again, check out their stuff in our description in the link below as well. We will plan on Thursday, and if any breaking news as it relates to football happens, or maybe basketball, we may schedule a live stream, but likely the next live stream on this channel will be Thursday following Iowa-Purdue. If I'm Iowa, I'm going to that game feeling loose, feeling like opportunity awaits. You're not expected to win. Iowa will not be expected to win. It's a tough place to play, but Iowa did challenge there last year. Tony Perkins had a big game, so maybe good timing with him coming on strong against Illinois today. So we'll be here to talk about it following the game in West Lafayette. A reminder to donate to the channel if you are so kind to do that. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. If you want to donate by credit card, click the PayPal link in the description below, and you can do that. Also, if you're interested in sponsoring any of the content, like our companies here this evening, reach out to me from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. That's from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. I'll throw that up on the bottom ticker as well. You can also shop Amazon with us. We are Amazon affiliates, which means you can click on our link, the Amazon link in our description, do your Amazon shopping, whatever purchases you would normally make them through our link, and it helps the channel. That's a way of being able to sponsor, or I should say a way of being able to support the channel. Also, from the Hawkeye of the Storm, we got merchandise down, merchandise to go. More designs coming. Click the link in the description. And, of course, to become a premium subscriber, click the join button next to From the Hawkeye of the Storm. You'll get some periodic perks there as well. All right, folks. I think we're good. No call. It's been a kind of a quiet day in the phone lines, which is just fine. A lot of people getting back from or driving home from the game. So please drive safely. And we got more great hoops this evening. And it's fun to be, being able to sit here and say that Iowa's won 7 of the last 9, and you got an opportunity to potentially knock off the number one team in the country next Thursday, regardless of what happens. That game is not going to hurt Iowa's resume at all. That's why it's opportunity knocking for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Again, I'll be back with Coach Gary Close next Thursday following Iowa-Purdue for Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. For Coach Gary Close this evening, I'm Corey Brada here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Everybody have a safe week and enjoy the warm-up here in the state of Iowa. Take care.